Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cannabis Tech Talks. You're chopping it up with Chuck here, and we are very excited to be speaking with Brad Bogus, the VP of Marketing at Confident Cannabis. How you doing, Brad?
Very exciting.
Very exciting. I am super excited to talk to you. I was just at the Emerald Conference down in San Diego, and I could not, everywhere I looked, all I saw was Confident Cannabis. You were on the walls, you guys were on the signage, you guys were
peeking over
everywhere.
your shoulder.
It was, you guys had a really big presence there.
Yeah. We, you can't miss us a little by design, but, we've actually supported the Emerald Conference for the last 5 years and have, I think this is our third year being title sponsor, and hope to do it again next year. It's a phenomenal conference for us, and we really love supporting everything about it.
Yeah, I got to say that we've been partnered here at Cannabis and Tech today. We've been partnered with them for several years, and because we have so many events we go to, we can't go to all of the events. You know, our team gets spread out and they're everywhere. So this is my first time going, and man, it was paradise. You know, Coronado Bay. The content was off the hook. I mean, it was just like it was a really, really top notch event. So kudos to you guys, and of course, kudos to our friends there at the Emerald Conference. But that was science on a silver platter, and a really, really cool event.
Yeah, the content is second to none out of any of the cannabis conferences I've gone to. So it's definitely one of my top, 2 or 3 conferences of the whole year. And it's very different from what you see at most other cannabis conferences. And that's a good thing because we get a lot of the same,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt like the content was good, but also the size was nice. You know what I mean? Yep. It was, and the way they had everybody at the resort there, it made it really easy to interact and, kind of network, back before we had the social distancing. So it was
exactly right.
That was kind of the last hoorah before all the events got shut down.
No doubt. Yeah, we were. I had gotten an inquiry that somebody wanted to talk to me about how the coronavirus is going to affect the cannabis supply chain, and this was just early enough that I was like, "What?" I mean, aside from some like cart manufacturing, like this isn't going to be that big of a deal. Everybody's freaking out over nothing. And then it wasn't a week later that I was like, oh.
Yeah. It kind of just started kicking off there. But tell us real quickly, how did you get into kind of where you are right now? And then we'll jump into what Confident Cannabis does. But what's your personal story? How did you get involved with Confident Cannabis?
Yeah, man. Well, it's a bit of a weird one. I studied acting growing up and always intended to be a stage actor. And so being a marketer is definitely a different path to take from that. But really, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I got done with college and started working in the media world a bit, creating content. We made a couple short films at a video production company that I had started with some friends and my brother. And what I found was that a lot of the assets of storytelling were extremely applicable in a commercial setting, not just making commercials, but like just thinking about business in general. We wanted to be filmmakers, so we created a company to do that. And then we had to run that company. So when you're running a company, you're rarely ever the thing that you started that company to do. Like if you're starting a company to make films, you're rarely making films when you're running a film company. You're actually doing other things like, operations of a business and accounting and payroll and, you know what I mean? Like all these things that are not, creative. And so my background with my family all being entrepreneurs and me being an artist, I was able to sort of pair those two things together and found like a strong way to make a career that way. And so, started a few companies in Austin that were all around media production as well as marketing and strategy and, all of those things. And, eventually got a little bored with it. I'd been working in Texas. So I was working with real estate companies and a few tech companies and healthcare companies. And, just after a while, I was like, this doesn't feel like anything I wanted to do. What am I doing here? And
a real grind, huh?
Yeah. And also just with, people I didn't like not the people I was in the business with, but like our clients, like
Yeah.
I just, I don't care about real estate companies in Texas. I certainly don't care about oil and gas companies. I actually kind of, philosophically disagree with them entirely. So, I just kind of felt like a sellout a bit, and like I was not in the right place. And a mentor of mine helped me identify what to look for and to distill it into a very simple thing. And he's like, look, just look for an opportunity in an industry that you like. And I was like, oh, well, I could tell you right now that's cannabis. And it was, to me, the most interesting thing that was happening in our entire generation. I mean, it was an industry building from scratch that never happens really in a lifetime. But it was also an industry that was building from scratch of all of the right materials and with all of the right, emphasis behind truth and community. And so, like, I saw the opportunity for the cannabis industry to really change the world through social good as being well more positioned than trying to take a legacy industry and make it do good. So there's all these things about cannabis that interested me. I was also a consumer of it for over 10 years. I knew a lot about it. I had done a lot of research. I used to be straight edge. So, I was kind of like, I bought into the propaganda against cannabis for so long, not because of the government. I actually hated the government, but, it was wired in, right. And I believed all of these falsehoods. And when I realized that so much of this was us being lied to, like that sort of, ignited my punk rock, motivations behind it. So really, I just coalesced all of this like background and experience and passion into cannabis, and got opportunities there. Worked at the Cannabist for a while. And then after that, through networking, I found the opportunity at Confident Cannabis and was lucky enough to be chosen to come lead the marketing team here.
So when did you have that revelation that maybe Dare had lied to you about cannabis? How old were you?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd say probably 26 or 27, which would have made that 2006 or 2007.
Okay.
I basically, I smoked weed in high school, and then, went completely straight edge afterwards for different reasons than the DARE program. Like, I kind of always thought the government was lying to us and was full of shit. That's why I was into punk rock to begin with. But I thought that, cannabis basically like kills your brain cells, and like some of that internal messaging behind it all still stuck, right? So by the time I turned 25, my now wife, then girlfriend, and I got high for the first time again since high school for me on 420. And then I started, just talking with and doing business with responsible people who also smoked weed. And I was like, I thought about this differently. I thought about this incorrectly. I now know a little bit more. But I think like the real true revelation behind the power of what cannabis provides to us and just how deep those lies were, I probably didn't make that revelation until summer of 2016. I mean, it was really getting deep into the education that's coming out of the cannabis industry and the retelling of history while unwinding what elements of propaganda were in the original telling of that history to begin with. That really opened my eyes to it.
Yeah, I think that's why all of us in the media, especially in the cannabis media, we've got an obligation to show kind of the different layers, of cannabis. And of course, you've got the social aspect, and you've got the lifestyle and everything like that. But I think it's really nice to be able to bring the science into it and the tech into it, and to be able to, for some people who are like, I'm not buying that, whatever, then all of a sudden when it's looked at as, medicine, or when it's looked at as something that helps people with real conditions, or you can start backing it up with some science and things like that, then all of a sudden, I think it really helps to destigmatize and kind of change what the, years and years and years of propaganda has instilled in people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even growing up as an artist, I've always been like heavily curious about science, almost science adjacent in the sense that, there was a lot of like my early education that started to push me towards science and technology, but I took a hard steer over into art. But I always like had this like intense curiosity growing up that has allowed me to continue to educate myself as well as seek education from others. And when I was able to see just the deep amount of science behind why cannabis was so special, like that interested me in more science across the globe. You know what I mean? Like not just about cannabis, about all plants, about, ecosystems, about our body, about our neurochemistry. Like it is in and of itself a Pandora's box of exploration and education that I think the whole world should be able to take part in. And so I love any level of science education that can come from the media. The telling of these stories is so vitally important and is just interesting. I mean, like what else can we talk about in the world that has this depth of and variety of stories to tell? I can't think of anything that's similar.
Well, what I think is interesting about it too is that, I think a lot of people have a natural love for science. Like growing up, I loved space. I wanted to be an astronaut. Yeah. I think that, I've got an 8-year-old daughter, right? I mean, she loves animals. She loves science, the zoo, the Museum of Natural Science. Like, I think science comes naturally for people to like it or be interested in it. And I think it's really cool when you combine kind of two worlds. You take our established world of science, that what we know and what we're used to and everything like that. Take like, Cosmos, Neil deGrasse Tyson, like that type of stuff there. And then you find out that, we're finding out through talking to those people and everything like that. They've been saying for a while now, the science people have been saying for a while now, no, cannabis is okay. Like it's not the end of the world. Like people
exactly.
It's funny. We've kind of had an ally there all along that we never realized. But yeah, I think the science part of cannabis is just absolutely fascinating. And I'm really excited to kind of get into more about Confident Cannabis and what you guys are doing. But we've got to pay the bills. So we're going to take a quick break here and give a shout out to one of our sponsors. And then we'll be right back and talk some more about Confident Cannabis and the science and what you guys do there.
Today's episode of Cannabis Tech Talks is brought to you by STM Canna, your source for some of the best tech in the cannabis industry, including the Rocket Box, a commercial grade machine that can roll 453 pre-rolls in 3 minutes. Far faster than any other pre-roll machine on the market. And the Revolution. The STM Revolution is the world's most advanced commercial grinder, processing over 400 pounds of flower daily. Visit stmcanna.com to learn more. That's www.stmcanna.com to learn more.
Okay, everybody, we're back here on Cannabis Tech Talks. We are chatting with Brad Bogus, VP of Marketing at Confident Cannabis. We were just talking about the Emerald Conference. We were talking about science. What does Confident Cannabis do, Brad? Can you tell the audience?
I can, actually.
But you better be able to. You're the VP of Marketing.
Yeah, sort of my job.
Yeah.
Confident Cannabis helps cannabis businesses buy, sell, and test from one another. That's the simplest way to put it. But really, we're a company that dedicated ourselves 5 years ago when we began to really tackling the wholesale trade problem in cannabis. Like when you look at all of the problems that the cannabis industry, operators and business owners within the industry face, outside of the legislative issues like the federal legalization and banking, the biggest problem was wholesale trading was just too hard. We were dealing with businesses that were, emerging from the illicit market, and just in general, not really aligned to using technological tools to help find products, to help find buyers. In almost every industry, you have technology that helps people do these jobs, right? Sales and buyers on either side of any given retail or product supply chain are able to find each other in a number of different ways without having to walk out their doors. In the cannabis industry, almost everybody is operating via door knocks and text messages and phone calls and emails. Arguably, our biggest competitor for wholesale trade is Instagram because of the way that cannabis business operators work almost entirely on Instagram. So, trading was hard. People didn't trust each other. They couldn't believe that a product tested for the results it tested with because you never really knew the producer who might be walking through your door telling you, yo, this stuff is fire. It's 28%, but they're showing you a test result for a different batch. There was all of those problems, in being able to trust any given person that is trying to sell their product to you as a retail store and knowing that the test results were actually valid. that the business owner was also licensed. But just, even outside of those problems, like being able to streamline communication for people to give them one place where they can find products across their state was just something that didn't exist. And there's not really still many options to find that, if any options to find that outside of what we've recently built. So we wanted to solve that problem. That problem is not easy to solve. You can't just give cannabis business companies software and say, here you go, problem solved. There's a lot that needs to take place, and you really need to unpack that problem to understand that what belies it is trust and transparency issues.
Right.
And to be able to solve trust and transparency is not a technological solution that you just build software for. It's not just a feature. You have to really, strategically back into this problem. And so what we started with was building laboratory software for cannabis labs. And all cannabis labs have to use software to take data from their instrumentation and then provide it to their clients in a meaningful manner. And that software is called Laboratory Information Management Systems, or LIMS systems. And nobody had built anything for the cannabis industry. So 5 years ago, we started by building LIMS systems for the cannabis labs. And the point of doing this was to know that we could acquire, a pipeline of supply through the cannabis labs at the earliest known point that a cannabis product can be bought or sold. Everything has to be tested. Once you have a lab test, you can then sell into the wholesale market or to retailers. But if we were able to connect to cannabis laboratories, we could have the earliest known point for that product to be available, and we'd be getting those test results from the lab directly rather than from the producers after they've had an opportunity to, say, fudge the numbers or Photoshop their test results. So we get a pipeline of verified and trusted supply of information from laboratories. Those clients who use those labs get accounts on our lab software so that they get their certificates of analysis delivered to them through a dashboard. But they also have results pages that they can share that are really clean and easy to see. Buyers can access those test results via links sent through email or text or a QR code. And so we really made that information transfer very transparent, very easy, and streamlined in like a very similar way so that you always knew what you were seeing. And that was the first step to solving the wholesale problem. So where we're at now is we've just launched our wholesale platform in California. We've operated it in Oregon now for about 1.5 years. And this platform is essentially just putting a buy button on those test results. It takes those lab tested products and then automatically populates them into a marketplace where buyers can find any product in their state based on category and a number of different filters that looks through the chemistry. They can say, I only want to find cannabis that's 20% and above and has been tested for terpenes and is flower, and, boom, all of these results show up that fit those parameters. They can add price, parameters around it. They can save searches and be notified when new products are available. And that's the thing we've been building towards for 5 years. We finally now have it out there. We just brought it to California, and we're seeing a lot of success with it because it's something that the industry really needs.
That's pretty smart that you guys, so you guys came up with the LIMS system, and then you sort of expanded out from that to kind of connect the dots for all these different, people that are touching, that need access to these statistics and the numbers and the results and everything like that. So you guys took it like several steps further than just creating the system for the labs.
That's right. Yes, because what we were looking at was the totality of the problem, right? The problem isn't that retailers are having a hard time just finding products. In fact, if you really look at their world, they have people beating down their door trying to take their time to sell them products. So like retailers have a steady stream of people coming at them to try to get them to buy from them. But that's not efficient. If a retailer meets every single person at the door that comes knocking, their entire day, every day will be spent just, dealing with producers and smelling their product and seeing what they've got, right? If they were just to focus on their emails, they've got plenty of emails to keep them busy for the day. That's not really efficient, right? That's not helping them make their margins. But aside from that, how does a distillate manufacturer source trim? Where are they going to find all that bulk material? Where is an edibles company going to source distillate? Where are they going to find all that bulk material, right? Every single member of the supply chain is, for the most part, a buyer and a seller. And the process with which they have to do those tasks is incredibly difficult. And that information is not easily available. And if it is available, it's really hard to trust. So, if you really want to solve this problem, you can't just build software to solve it. You have to really understand what underlies these problems. And what underlies it is that lack of trust and transparency. So, we were able to provide a great service to labs. We still have one of the leading LIMS for cannabis labs. We have over 60% of the labs nationwide using it, our software. So we're still providing a great benefit to the cannabis labs out there. We're integrated with Metric. We give them a whole lot of things that they're not able to get elsewhere, and we're the cheapest option. But the point for us is that allows us to solve some of these fundamental problems that are preventing this wholesale trade from occurring all across the supply chain. And so it's, the clients who are using both our lab software through the cannabis lab they test with and also the wholesale marketplace actually have one place where that stream of information is coming and able to be actionable in the sales world immediately. We're integrated a Metric across the board so their inventory balances can sync, and it just streamlines this process so that they're not spending hours of every single day trying to accomplish what should take them 30 minutes or less. And that's what we're able to give them now because of that connection to the laboratory software.
Well, so that's brilliant that you guys are actually, you're saving them time. You're helping to, let's be honest, this industry, but when it was underground, you didn't know necessarily what the quality was or what the profiles were or what you were really getting. I mean, they could tell you it's lemon haze and it could be something else or.
Right. You wouldn't even write anything down. Like that's all that could be used as incriminating evidence.
Right. And so this is I think it's really cool that the technology, that software, that the science. Here we go again. It really helps just take the entire industry, helps it level up, and you guys are kind of leading the way with that.
Yeah, man, it's really exciting. I mean, the cannabis nerd in me could not have found a better place to play. We have the largest database of cannabis chemistry that exists, I think, because of how many labs we work with. That's, for what it's worth, that's like an uncontested or unfact-checked point. But I mean, the fact of the matter is every product that goes through these labs, that data comes into our software so that we can deliver it to their clients. And so we have all of this chemistry data coming from all of these products, from all of these producers at all of these labs across the nation. And as a result, there's just so many data points now that exist within that flow of information. We protect the hell out of that data. We don't allow anybody access to that data. We'll never sell that data, and we'll never do business with our clients using that data against them. Like, none of that is what we're here for. But what we can do is some really interesting stuff when we anonymize and aggregate that data and start looking at, trying to answer the fundamental questions like, what is the variability of cannabis chemistry within flower? And how accurate are strain names when you're talking about cannabis flower when it comes to predictive effect? Can you expect that the Blue Dream you're going to buy in Colorado is going to give you the exact same effect as the Blue Dream you might buy in Oregon? Does Blue Dream even mean anything? Right?
Yeah. How accurate are strain names?
Not very, it turns out. Really, the word strain is problematic. Let's call them cultivars, right? So these are genetic different, versions of a plant. The genes of the plant, if you can certify them, which is not required in any state. So keep in mind that just the name of anything on the market is dubious to start. There is known practice within the industry that somebody could grow a strain called Slimer, but nobody knows what the hell Slimer is. So they're like, well, this isn't going to really sell, but if I call it Jack Hair, it will sell. And so they just rename it, right? Something popular, something that sells. And then, there's no reason that any of the state regulatory bodies would have a problem with that. They don't look for it. So, right off the bat, you can already say it's in dubious waters, right? But even when you're using genetically certified cultivars, each plant is variable. I mean, even within one individual plant, the top of the plant versus the bottom of the plant has variations in the chemistry. But you can give the exact same certified genetic to every grower on the planet, and they will all grow a different version of cannabis chemistry in that plant. There's a really great competition called the Grow Off that does this exact type of experiment where they work with the certified cultivar. They use clones. They distribute the clones to different competitors. Some 30 to 60 different competitors will grow that in their own fashion. And what they find are 30 to 60 variations of this cannabis plant that look different, that have different chemistry in it. So it's really interesting to see just how variable these things are and just how little some of the things that we've used to understand the cannabis world, how little they actually mean. To know that there's something like 3,000 plus cultivars of cannabis being sold on the shelves out there, that doesn't mean there's 3,000 different versions of cannabis. In fact, there might only really be 10 to 20 different versions of cannabis when you look at the chemistry, irrespective of all that.
Wow. So is indica and sativa, is that a accurate kind of representation of what people are getting, or are we getting more into terpenes?
Conclusively, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There is no chemical meaning whatsoever to indica and sativa. We've been able to prove this. We have a platform that anybody can go play with, consumers and businesses alike. On our website, it's for free. It's called Connect. What we did was we took all this cannabis chemistry information, and we were essentially saying, like, if you're talking about effect, right? Yeah. The bouquet of chemicals that creates that effect, or the entourage effect, as it's currently understood, is both cannabinoids and terpenes. So we were like, what if we took all of the flower in our database that is in wide trade, not the proprietary stuff, let's leave that out, but just the stuff that's in wide trade, and looked at only the samples that have been tested for both cannabinoids and terpenes. And then through some very complicated data algorithms and data modeling, build a 3D space that takes cannabis strains or cultivars rather, and places them near each other when they're chemically similar and far apart from each other when they're chemically dissimilar. And this is like math in 26 dimensions, but what you get is this really crazy shape of all these little dots that you can play with. And you can see the ratios of cannabinoids and terpenes there. You can look up names, you can look up regions, you can look up states. So there's a lot of different ways you can play with it. When you click one of the filters that's indica sativa, you will see very visually that indica and sativa occupy the same space together all across the board. But you can also, look at just cannabinoid class in general. The CBD to THC ratio tends to be the main differentiators between most cannabis strains. And then we have some that are colored for THCV because there's enough of that showing up in the data. But yes, really to answer your question, indica sativa mean only the size of the plant as it's growing, but nothing about its chemistry. The names mean something we think about the chemistry, but we're not sure that the names are even accurate, and we're not really sure to what level those names really mean something. Our best guess is that a given cultivar that is certified genetically can give you sort of which terpenes and cannabinoids might exist in its ratios, but not the volume of each of those. So I think the best analogy I've heard is our CEO, Steve, says that the genetics give you sort of the station on the radio to tune into, but the actual terpenes and cannabinoids, the volume of each of those, like an equalizer, are going to be determined by the decisions you make as a grower. Whether you're indoor, outdoor, HPS lighting versus LED, live soil versus aquaponics. Well, all those decisions, there's a million different variables that can go into it. Maybe not a million, 1,000, whatever. But they create a whole bunch of different outcomes, and almost none of the ways that we understand cannabis will accurately predict anything in terms of effect for any given consumer.
That's so crazy, because I'm typically a kind of a sativa guy, right? Yeah. I feel stupid even saying that now, but I'm kind of a sativa guy. You get the creativity going, and sometimes it can kick in a little bit of that kind of paranoia, where you're thinking too much. On the other hand, if I'm with an indica, I feel like my eyes get kind of heavy, and I feel like that there's that relationship different between the sativa and the indica. But what you're saying is there's a whole lot of other factors that are playing into that than just painting with a broad brush.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we use indica sativa as shorthand for being up or downer, right? And that's pretty much the binary that most cannabis is referred to as. But as you just mentioned, there's a plethora of different outcomes based on one of those binaries. Like, I can smoke some sativas and I can feel dopey and kind of laugh at dumb movies. I can feel, wiry and a little bit like creative, but maybe caffeine buzzy. And then I can feel full on chest compressed panic. Right.
Gorilla panic.
That's right. Exactly. Someone's like, there's an elephant stepping on my chest. Yeah. That is, already a multitude of outcomes from what is classified as the same thing. right? At the same time, most, classic indicas actually allow me to focus because my brain chemistry is such that I probably would have been diagnosed with ADD if I had been born in 1985 rather than 1980. So I have to sort of treat what is my already imbalance in my brain. And because my brain is super hyperactive and I'm constantly distracted by myself and have a hard time focusing, when I have a strain of cannabis that normally would be considered couch locked to somebody else, it actually slows my brain down in a way that allows me to focus on something specific, the way that, say Ritalin works for people with ADD. And so, indica in and of itself, classically would mean sedative, would mean down. But for me personally, it means focused and productive, which is what sativa means for most other people. And what that told me is that, these things are about our particular chemistry in our brains, as well as they are about the chemicals that we're interacting with. We know cannabis to be a homeostasis, but my wife and I have different brain chemistries. She needs something that is quote unquote an upper, the classic sativa, like the sativa that you were talking about. Those things to her help her be productive. To me, they make me unproductive. But when I smoke, the stuff that makes me productive, it makes her couch locked. So why are we having different reactions to the same strains? That means we're bringing different chemistries into the experiment. And if cannabis is homeostasis, it's going to be creating different outcomes in both of our brains to achieve balance. Right? Because we have maybe, I might have a heavy overdose of serotonin and a low amount of dopamine naturally in my brain. Hers might be the flip flop. So, the same strain of cannabis is going to react differently in our heads because it's trying to create balance in different ways.
That is, dude, you nailed it. That's probably one of the best explanations I've ever heard, other than the fact that, dude, we're all unique. We're like snowflakes and we respond differently to different things because we're all wired differently.
Absolutely right.
We're all kind of built differently. Okay, well, let me ask you this, because we just had, we recorded a podcast earlier with Yobi Benjamin. He's one of the, kind of the leading experts out there right now on testing for coronavirus. And he told us that the cannabis industry right now is poised with their the equipment that they have in their labs. I believe they're called PCR machines that they use to determine genetically the RNA, the DNA of the cannabis, that equipment can be used to test for coronavirus.
Wow.
Yes. And I thought that was super cool because he told us there's approximately 1,000 of these machines. And obviously our system is going to be super stressed right now. Everybody's trying to get tested. Everybody's really, really on edge about this, and it's extremely communicable. But I think this would be awesome if all of a sudden the cannabis industry goes, okay, hold my joint. And they freaking, you know what I mean? And they put on the S on their chest, and all of a sudden they can utilize that testing equipment that they already have to help expedite the testing for the coronavirus. And I thought that was just
captivating.
Awesome,
I think that would be the coolest thing that the industry could do right now. And really, like, we're gonna have to talk afterwards because I want to get that contact information. We have, we work with, over half the labs. So like, I want to get that story into their hands. I think that would be really cool to create to coalesce some sort of some movement within the cannabis space to help out in which way they can. I will say that in response to coronavirus, I have seen the flip side of this attitude, which is cannabis opportunists trying to claim that cannabis will prevent or even cure coronavirus. There are a number of people out there doing that. One of them is a very high profile NFL player who owns a CBD company who's doing it. And that's disgusting behavior. It's going to do the absolute opposite. It's going to put the villain's symbol on our chest rather than the S, right? So maybe we can get the labs to do the right work.
It was Kyle Turley, and I saw it too. And I've also seen somebody else post, not as high profile, but they posted that CBD cures coronavirus. And this is the kind of shit right now that makes us look bad. This is the kind of stuff that takes, it's like we're going 2 steps forward and then, 3 steps back. This is kind of crap that we have to get out. And again, I think it's really cool to see the leaders of the industry rally around not only the common sense, but the same theme, the science behind it. There's no science that, gargling with vinegar is going to kill the coronavirus.
Right.
And there's no science that CBD cures it. So let's stop putting that out there, because that is, that's the kind of stuff that just confuses people. And like you said, makes us look bad.
Exactly. All a prohibitionist needs to do is take that dude's tweets and anyone else who's saying the same bullshit in our industry and take it to Congress and say, see, this is what they're doing, because they'll do anything to turn a buck. And it's absolutely disgusting. But the good news is that there are people that are doing the opposite, right? So if these cannabis labs have discovered that there's a way to apply their instrumentation to help the virus, like that's something we want to accelerate. And hopefully, as an industry, more of us can continue to speak out against people who are making these ridiculous claims and just help to inform the world that, these are just opportunists that exist everywhere. Right now, they're trying to use this panic to make money, just like so many others. Like, we don't stand for that,
Absolutely. And I just want to say the science has shown right now that we should not be sharing doobies.
Nope.
Puff Puff Pass is kind of out for the foreseeable future. It's bring your own. Let's be smart. And, actually taking it a step further, what Yobi said was that smoking anything, right now leads to a bit more danger, because you don't want to be doing things to your lungs. So some people might want to think about edibles because it's pretty crazy time right now.
Always vape too. Yeah. I mean, admittedly, I'm still smoking, but we're pretty well quarantined over here. I don't need to. I'm not super concerned about it personally, but I know that people who are immunocompromised, especially, might have a different calculus going on. But yeah, what's one of the most popular products that we're seeing in California right now are these mini joint packs, dog walkers, as they're called sometimes. Yeah. And so we don't have to share a joint anymore. We can just come over with a pack of dog walkers. Everyone gets one. You can still share cannabis. You just each one smokes your own.
I think that's awesome, man. The innovation, the science, the tech, Confident Cannabis, you guys are right there in the middle of it all. I could talk to you forever, but my producer is like, he's waving his hands. There's a red light going here. So let the audience know where they can find out more about Confident Cannabis.
Yeah. So our website is confidentcannabis.com. We publish quite a bit of content and really good quality stuff too. So you can go to confidentcannabis.com/news and read our blog, where we're posting a lot of different interviews with different women who work in the cannabis industry, different agricultural spotlights on cultivators and all their different interesting practices. We're publishing data on wholesale and also data on chemistry often. So a lot of really good content there. We also have recently released a podcast. You'll find information about it there as well. And then also, if you're interested in that chemistry tool I was telling you about, you can check out Connect right on our website, or just connect.confidentcannabis.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brad. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm sure we're going to have to do this again sometime down the road. And listen, if there's ever anything that you guys have going on over there, or any kind of new trends or new ideas or anything like that, make sure you let us know, because
sure will.
we really love what you guys are doing out there, and pushing the science and helping that side of the business really get some exposure.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, this has been Cannabis Tech Talks. We really appreciate you joining us. If you liked this episode, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends. And again, thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. And don't forget to follow us on social media so you can stay in the conversation, and visit our website, cannatechtoday.com.